My name is Camila. I'm 41 years old, and I think I've been lying to myself for the last 3 years. It's not the kind of lie you plan. It creeps in while you're folding laundry or cleaning the stove, whispering that everything is fine. That this is what marriage looks like after a while. That if you're still sharing a bed and still saying love you before hanging up, you're doing alright. But that's the thing about slow leaks, you don't notice the damage until it starts dripping through the ceiling. The day it happened, the day I said, "It's leaking," and Ethan, my stepson, came running in with that ridiculous half-smile and a towel, I don't know why it hit me. Maybe it was the image of him, lanky and boyish, trying to fix something that had already rotted from the inside. Maybe it was because he noticed something that his father hadn't seen in months. Or maybe it's because I said it's leaking about the damn sink, and all I could think about was my marriage. Nick used to make me laugh until I snorted. The kind of laugh that left my jaw sore and my ribs aching. God, we were good in bed, too. Not just the sex, the way he used to trace his fingers down my spine, like he was memorizing it. How he'd tuck my hair behind my ear in the middle of an argument, like he couldn't stop loving me even while we fought. There was a time he'd kiss my shoulder while I was cooking. Wrap his arms around me from behind. And I'd lean into him, full of trust. Full of belief that whatever life threw at us, us, was solid. But now, kisses land on my cheek like missed deliveries. Our cuddles feel like habits. He holds me at night, sure, but it's the kind of hold that makes me feel lonelier than when I sleep alone. Like he's there out of duty, not desire. Like I'm a box checked off the nightly routine. Last week, I kissed him on the lips after dinner. A slow, deliberate kiss, not rushed, not out of obligation. He smiled, pulled back, and said, "Everything okay?" I lied. I said, "Yeah. Just felt like kissing you." But really? I was testing. Wondering if he'd kiss me back like he used to. If he'd press his hand to the small of my back and pull me in. He didn't. We've been living like this, like polite strangers in a home we once built on laughter and lust. I try to convince myself it's just a phase. That hormone shift, that passion isn't supposed to burn forever. That it's normal to feel distant sometimes. But then something happens. Something small. Like a leaky faucet. Or a towel handed to me by my stepson who noticed the drip before his father did. And it shatters me. Not because of Ethan, he's a good kid. Sweet. Sensitive in a way Nick hasn't been in years. But because of what it says. Nick didn't hear the drip. He didn't see the water pooling. He didn't even look up from his phone when I said, "Something's leaking." And I remember just standing there. The sound of the water plinking into the steel sink. Ethan at my side, looking at me like I mattered. Like the leak mattered. And I realized, something had changed. It wasn't one big betrayal or a screaming match or infidelity. It was the silence. The apathy. The slow erosion of attention. That was the moment. When a 17-year-old boy noticed I was standing in a puddle, and his father didn't. That was the first time I let myself say it out loud, even if only in my head, "I think I'm disappearing in this marriage." The thing about being married to a man who saves lives for a living is, you learn to excuse his absences. Not just the physical ones, the all-nighters, the missed anniversaries, but the emotional ones too. Nick's a good man. Everyone says so. Nurses write him thank you cards. Patients hug him in the supermarket. Even Ethan talks about how cool his dad is when he's in his zone, commanding a trauma room like a quiet storm. But here, at home, he's not heroic. He's just a man who leaves his shoes in the hallway and kisses me like he's clocking out. Last Tuesday, we had a fight. Though calling it a fight might be generous, it was more like a silence that exploded sideways. I had made dinner. Not fancy, just pasta with garlic bread. The sink was finally fixed. Ethan had actually helped me seal the base last weekend, and I was proud of the effort. Nick came home later than usual, looking half dead, tossed his keys in the bowl and kissed me. The kind of kiss where only his lips move. "You okay?" I asked, handing him a plate. He grunted. Saturday. 8. We barely spoke. He finished before I did and walked over, resting his hands on my shoulders, rubbing gently. "You're tense," he said. I nodded, chewing slower, unsure how to say, "You make me tense." His hands moved lower. It wasn't aggressive, not Nick's style. But his fingers slid under my shirt in a way that felt, not tender. Just expected. Like touching me was his shortcut to closeness. I froze. He didn't notice. "Let's go to bed early," he murmured. That's when I snapped. Quietly. Bitterly. "Do you even know how to talk to me without touching me first?" He pulled his hands back like I burned him. "What?" I set my fork down. "You think rubbing my back fixes things, Nick. But I've been talking to you for months, in silence, in signals, and you don't see it." He sat back, jaw clenching. "I work 12-hour shifts, Camila. I don't have the energy for puzzles when I get home." "It's not puzzles. It's me. I'm here. And I don't want to feel like somebody you triage after work." The words hung between us, heavier than I'd expected. "You're overreacting," he muttered. I felt the sting in my eyes. "That's exactly it. I tell you I'm lonely, and you think it's a mood swing. Then tell me what you want, Camila." "I want to be seen. Not just touched." We didn't talk after that. He went to bed. I stayed in the kitchen, staring at the patched pipe under the sink, the one Ethan helped me with. That boy, for all his youth, had more instinct for care than the man I married. I hate that I thought it. But it was true. Ethan had noticed the way I held my back after lifting the groceries last week and carried the rest inside. Nick hadn't even looked up from his phone. It's not that I want Ethan's attention. That's not what this is. It's the contrast that stings. When a teenager notices my pain before my husband does, something's deeply wrong. The next morning, Nick left a note instead of waking me. "Sorry about last night. I don't always know how to talk. I'm trying." Trying. That word used to comfort me. Now it just feels like another bandage on a flood. The misunderstanding isn't about sex. Not really. It's about what happens when love stops being curious. When someone stops asking who you are and assumes they already know. Nick thinks intimacy starts with a kiss or a hand under my shirt. For me, it starts with a conversation, with someone seeing me in the moment I don't even realize I'm fading. And right now, I'm not sure Nick sees me at all. Nick came home early for once. That should have made me happy. He brought flowers, tulips, my favorite, though the stems were crushed, like they'd been shoved into the passenger seat. He smiled like he wanted credit for remembering. "I thought maybe we could have a night in," he said, leaning in to kiss me. I let him. His lips were warm, familiar. But that was all, familiar. There was no spark. No pull in my chest. Just a mechanical meeting of mouths. "That's nice," I said, placing the tulips in the sink instead of a vase. I didn't mean to. I just forgot how to respond with enthusiasm. He wrapped his arms around my waist from behind and pressed his face into my neck. His scruff tickled. "Missed you," he mumbled. I didn't say it back. Instead, I stiffened. Just slightly. Just enough that he felt it. He pulled back a little. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." He moved around to face me, his hand still at my waist. "Cam, I knew what was coming. the couch cuddling, the shoulder kisses, the quiet signals that he wanted more. I wasn't angry at him for wanting me. I was angry that this was the only way he showed he wanted me. "Nick," I said, trying to sound gentle, "can we just watch a movie or something?" "Of course," he said quickly. Too quickly. Like he was trying not to act wounded. We sat on the couch and picked some crime doc neither of us really cared about. 10 minutes in, he pulled me toward him, my head on his chest. I let it happen. But every time he ran his fingers up and down my arm, I overthought it. Was he being affectionate or just warming me up? He kissed my hair. I didn't react. His hand drifted from my shoulder to my hip. And then lower. I froze. "Don't," I said. He stopped, startled. I was just touching you." "I know," I said. My voice sounded too small in my own ears. "I just don't want that right now." "Okay," he said, pulling away slightly. The pause after was awkward. He was trying not to sulk, and I was trying not to feel guilty for saying no to my own husband. But guilt still settled in. Heavy. Familiar. I pulled the blanket tighter around me. He tried to hold my hand, and I let him, but it felt like I was babysitting his feelings. Nick didn't say much for the rest of the evening. And I didn't know how to bridge the gap without making it worse. Later, in bed, he turned off the light and reached for me again. This time, slower. His hand on my waist, his lips brushing my shoulder. "I just miss being close to you," he whispered. I didn't know how to tell him that closeness wasn't just about bodies. So I stayed still. Let him kiss my back. Let his hands wander. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. That's the part one hates most, the gray in between. After a few minutes, I mumbled something about being tired and rolled away. He sighed, quiet but pointed. I felt it in the mattress. He didn't touch me after that. Lying there, staring into the dark, I tried to name what I was feeling. Resentment? Loneliness? Or worse, numbness? The truth was, I wanted to want it. I missed him, too. Missed being that woman who could melt under his touch. But now every caress felt like pressure. Every kiss felt like it came with an expectation I couldn't meet. And in the hollow space between us, I whispered the one thing I didn't have the courage to say out loud: why does everything have to turn into sex? It started with lasagna. That's the absurd part. A layered, bubbling mess of pasta and cheese and effort. I'd spend hours making it, not because I wanted to cook, but because I thought maybe if I poured enough into the meal, he'd taste how hard I was trying. Ethan was upstairs in his room, headphones on. It was just me and Nick at the table. "This looks incredible," he said, already digging in. "You should cook like this more often." That sentence, that one casual remark, cracked something in me. Like all the hours I spent doing things I didn't want to do were invisible. Like I should do more, be more, give more, and maybe then he'd see me. I smiled, but it felt like I was borrowing someone else's face. "Glad you like it." He kept eating, talking about his shift at the hospital. Some patient story I couldn't follow. I nodded, pretending to listen. Then he reached across the table and touched my hand. And I snapped. "Don't," I said, sharper than I meant to. He blinked. "What?" "Don't just touch me when you want to shut me up." His hand recoiled. "Cam, what the hell are you talking about?" I stood up. The chair scraped violently against the floor. "I'm talking about this thing we pretend is a marriage. You come home, you eat, you grope me like I'm your reward, and I'm supposed to be grateful?" His fork hit the plate with a clang. "That's not fair." "No, Nick. What's not fair is that I haven't felt like a woman in this house in years." I feel like furniture. Like something you lean on when you're tired. That's not true. His voice got low, defensive. I try. I come home, I bring flowers, I tell you I miss you, and then you grab my ass in the kitchen like that's going to fix it. His eyes widened. I was trying to be playful. You don't get it. My throat was tight. I was shaking. Every touch feels like a lead up to sex. Like intimacy is a damn transaction. He stood now too. So what, I'm just supposed to ignore you? Walk past you every day and act like you're invisible? You already do. Silence. He stared at me like I'd just slapped him. And maybe I had. His jaw clenched. You think I don't notice you? I work myself to the bone, Camila. I see people die every day. You think I have energy left to read between the lines of every sigh and flinch you throw at me? I don't want you to read me, Nick. I want you to ask. To care enough to ask. We stood there, breathing hard across the dinner table. The lasagna steaming quietly between us. Something in me wanted to throw the whole damn thing at the wall. He grabbed his keys and walked toward the door. Nick, I'm going out, he said. Not angry. Just flat. Like he'd shut a switch off. And then he was gone. I stood in the wreckage of our evening, the silence so loud it rang in my ears. I dropped to the kitchen floor, knees against tile, hands shaking. I started to cry, those ugly, gasping sobs I hadn't let myself feel in months. This wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want a blow-up or an exit. I just wanted to be heard. But the words had come out like knives. All the quiet swallowing I'd done, all the swallowed resentment, it had finally spilled over, messy and loud. The worst part? I pictured Ethan coming downstairs to get a drink later and seeing the cold lasagna, the empty table. Not knowing what happened. Just feeling the tension still hanging in the air like damp smoke. That image shamed me more than anything. I curled in on myself on the cold kitchen floor. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe this thing I kept calling a marriage was already leaking beyond repair. It's been 12 days since the lasagna. Not that I'm counting on purpose, just subconsciously. Like how you know exactly how long it's been since you last heard someone laugh in your direction. Nick hasn't brought it up. Not once. But he's different. Not angry. Just elsewhere. He comes home late, even on days when I know his shift ends early. He eats dinner silently, rinses his plate, and disappears into the den under the pretense of catching up on medical journals. I don't follow. I don't knock. I don't ask. This new version of our marriage, it's not explosive. It's sterile. And in some ways, that's worse. We pass each other like ghosts in the hallway. I catch glimpses of the man I loved, his hand smoothing his hair in the mirror, the way he murmurs to the dog in the mornings, and I feel this sharp, familiar ache. I miss him. I miss being missed by him. But I don't know how to open the door without unraveling again. I think about that night more than I want to admit. Not just the fight, but what led up to it, the subtle disconnections, the unspoken needs, the way we both mistook touch for love and silence for peace. I keep asking myself if I overreacted, or if I just finally reacted. Nick hasn't reached for me once in these 12 days. And I haven't reached for him. But I see it, the sadness in his eyes when he pours his coffee. The way his shoulders stay tense even at home. Last night, I watched him through the crack in the den door. He wasn't reading. He was just sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. That image gutted me. Because Nick is not a villain. He never was. He's a man stretched thin by life and pain and pressure. And maybe he's never learned how to speak the language I need, but that doesn't mean he hasn't tried in his own way. I remember once, years ago, I cut my hand trying to open a wine bottle the wrong way. I cried, more from the shock than the pain. And Nick, who had just gotten home from a 14-hour shift, dropped everything. He cleaned the cut like I was one of his patients. Cradled my hand like it mattered more than his exhaustion. That man still exists. I think I've just stopped inviting him in. The guilt sits heavy in my chest. I want to tell him that I'm sorry for the way I exploded. That I've been scared of how far apart we've drifted and I didn't know how else to say it. But part of me is still angry. Still hurt. Still wondering why he didn't come after me. And maybe that's the real problem, we're both waiting to be chased, too prideful or too tired to move first. Tonight, I sat at the edge of our bed and stared at the space between our pillows. That 6-inch void felt like a canyon. I thought about saying something. About breaking the silence. But the words sat heavy in my throat. And I didn't know if I wanted to speak to fix us, or just to hear myself try. So I stayed silent. And now I'm here, in the dark again, wondering what kind of woman chooses distance over repair. Wondering if loving someone is always supposed to feel this exhausting. I close my eyes and whisper the truth I've been circling for days. I don't know if I'm strong enough to keep pretending this is okay. But I also don't know how to walk away from someone I still love, even if that love feels unrecognizable. I found him asleep on the couch again. It was almost midnight. The TV still glowed blue and flickered across his face. He looked older like this, shoulders slumped, mouth slightly open, the tension drained from his body in sleep. Vulnerable in a way he never allowed himself while awake. There was a blanket folded over the back of the couch, untouched. I pulled it down and laid it over him carefully. My hand hovered at his temple for a second, then brushed his hair gently aside. His eyes blinked open. "I didn't mean to wake you," I whispered. "It's okay," he murmured, voice thick with sleep. "I didn't want to wake you either." We both stood there in silence, each acknowledging what hadn't been said for weeks. "I miss you," I said, barely above a whisper. His eyes met mine, unsure. Cautious. "I don't know how to do this anymore," he admitted, sitting up, rubbing the sleep from his face. "You say I don't see you, and maybe that's true. But I've been drowning too, Camila." I just never said it out loud. I sat beside him. Not touching, just near. "I didn't want to hurt you," I said. "But I've been hurting anyway." Quietly. "And I think I wanted you to notice without me having to beg." "I thought I was doing the right things," he said. "Coming home. Being present. Trying to, be close." I nodded, eyes stinging. "But closeness isn't just skin. I wanted you to ask how I was. I wanted to feel like more than a body you came home to." He looked down. His hands fidgeted in his lap. "I don't know how to talk like you do. But I hear you now. I swear to God, I hear you." I placed my hand over his. Small. Hesitant. He didn't flinch. Neither of us moved for a long moment. Then he leaned forward and pressed his lips to my forehead, slow, reverent. No heat. Just presence. It wasn't enough to fix everything. But it felt like the first time in a long time that the touch wasn't an expectation. Just a moment of being seen. When I finally stood up to go back to bed, he stayed on the couch. I didn't ask him to come with me, and he didn't offer. But before I turned off the living room light, I looked back at him. He was watching me. And for once, I didn't feel invisible. Maybe we're still broken. Maybe we always will be, in little ways. But for the first time in weeks, I thought, maybe, we could start over. Not with sex. Not with flowers. But with a blanket. A couch. A forehead kiss. Something quiet. Something honest. Let me tell you something I didn't know 10 years ago when I married him: love doesn't die in loud explosions. It fades in whispers, dishes put away without thanks, hands brushed aside too gently to make a scene, lips that press but don't ask. It disappears in the spaces where words should live. I used to think passion was the heart of a relationship. And maybe in the beginning, it was. Nick and I had that wild, uncontainable kind of spark, the kind where your body knows them before your mind catches up. Where just one look in the kitchen could lead to hours of tangled sheets and laughter. But no one warns you what happens when real life moves in. When grief and exhaustion and errands slowly replace excitement. When you stop asking, "What do you need?" because you assume you already know. We got comfortable. Then we got careless. For years, I mistook his touch for love. And I let him believe my silence meant satisfaction. I didn't say what I needed, not because I didn't know, but because I didn't want to seem ungrateful. Or needy. Or worse, high maintenance. But desire isn't just sex. It's being seen. It's someone choosing to lean in when you're withdrawing. It's someone hearing the emotion behind the words, not just the words themselves. And emotional intimacy? That's the hardest kind of work. Because it asks you to stay present when it's easier to shut down. It asks you to stop reaching for the familiar script and actually listen. I broke down over lasagna, of all things. But really, I wasn't crying about dinner. I was mourning a version of myself I didn't know I'd lost, the woman who used to feel light, loved, wanted. The woman who didn't flinch when her husband touched her. I wanted that woman back. Still do. Nick isn't a bad man. And I'm not a saint. We hurt each other quietly, over time. Like a slow leak behind a wall you don't notice until the paint peels. But I've learned that love can survive cracks. It just can't survive pretending the cracks aren't there. We're not magically better. Don't mistake this for a clean ending. He still sleeps on the couch some nights. I still pull away when his hand drifts to my hip without warning. But we talk now. Really talk. The kind that starts with "this is hard to say," and ends with long silences and a hand being held, not grabbed. I told him the truth one night, that I hated how I recoiled when he touched me, that it scared me more than anything. Because I wanted to want him. And I didn't know if I ever would again. He didn't try to fix it. He just listened. And that, oddly enough, was the beginning of healing. Desire can't be forced. Affection can't be scheduled. And trust isn't built in grand gestures. It's built in everyday choices. In who listens when you say, "It's leaking," even if you're not talking about the faucet. So here I am, 41 and still learning how to speak without apology. Still learning how to stay soft when it would be easier to shut down. Still learning that sometimes, love means letting go of the version you thought you had, so you can discover the real one beneath it. If you're listening to this because you feel like you're fading in your relationship, let me say this: you are not invisible. Your longing is not too much. And the way you crave to be seen, not just touched, is not wrong. It's human. Start with a whisper. Start with one true thing. And see who stays to listen. That's where the real love begins.